Hi guys, this is Creative Cuts, a channel where I build, paint and create things. One of life's big questions is, are we alone in the universe? Space is pretty big. For many years there have been rumours and whistleblowers who have spoken out about secret programs to recover alien craft. Whether you believe or not is up to you. Let me know in the comments below. But in today's video I'm going to build an imaginary crash retrieval diorama. If you're new here, then feel free to subscribe if you want to see more videos like this, and always feel free to ask me questions. I'll always try to help where I can. I started with a simple sheet of MDF. No particular reason, just what I had to hand. I also had a whole heap of polystyrene packaging that I had saved because I'm a self-confessed hoarder and always on the lookout for potentially modelling materials. Today the polystyrene will just be mass to build up a quick, easy and cheap way of creating a landscape. I continued the quick and easy theme by using some cheap old PVA glue to fix my polystyrene to my base. I just randomly place a few sheets down in different thicknesses. I put a couple of weights on top to hold everything still while it dried. Didn't really have a plan at this stage, but I had a basic idea, so I ordered a couple of model kits online, which I thought would be a good starting point. I managed to pick up this Humvee and soldier kit. I liked them because they're modelled to look pretty realistic. The kits were pretty standard and easy to put together. And I was lucky enough to be sent some of these nice new cutters by Stedi. In perfect honesty, I'd never heard of them before, but when they arrived I knew I could put them to good use right away and give them a good test. They sent two kinds, one with two angled blades and the other one with one angled blade and one flat edge. Both worked very well and were a pleasure to use. Nice sharp blades with smooth clean cuts. It made me look at my old pair of cutters and think why I didn't replace these ages ago. I used them to cut all sorts of modelling materials, and over the years they've become pretty gnarly. They still do a job, but not the cleanest cuts anymore. So a nice new pair of cutters is very welcome. They won't change your life, but they will certainly make cutting models very easy and neat. Check them out with the link below. I used plastic cement to glue all the figures together, as they would set the scale for everything else. I also picked up some RGB mini ball lights sold as decorations for gardens or swimming pools. UFOs or UAP are often described as flying saucers, but there are also many sightings that report glowing orbs. So I thought these balls might be a nice way to represent this. I also wanted to try to add some headlights to the Humvee. I had some small LEDs and I found some that looked about the right size. I also have a little battery pack with a switch and wires all in one unit. This is really low profile and great for hiding underneath the model. I drilled out the existing plastic headlights with a Dremel and thin drill bit. Using the side of the drill bit to slowly carve away a hole big enough for the LEDs to sit in. I also realised that there'd be too much ambient light from the LEDs. Light would shine right through the model from all sides, so not realistic at all. So I took some black electrical tape and taped up the underside of the hood grille to block the light. I also taped up part of the LED that was not protruding out of the hole so as not to shine light backwards into the model. I cut down the stems of the LEDs to size, soldered some fine wire to the ends, and then seated them in the hole for the headlights. I then carefully thread all the wire through the underside of the model and soldered this together with the battery pack. I neatened everything up with a little more electrical tape, and then comes the moment of truth. Will it switch on? Nice. Once dry, I take a sharp knife and turn my whole base upside down and use the wood as a guide to cut nice straight clean lines in my polystyrene. Next I use a blowtorch to melt little troughs in my polystyrene. Make sure you do this outside or in a well ventilated area, as the fumes from the polystyrene are very toxic. I'm not at all worried about details here, just basic shapes. Keeping with the quick and cheap theme, I grabbed some cheap ready mixed filler and used this to smooth over the polystyrene, roughly making some basic terrain. I let this fully dry and then gave everything a spray of thinned down PVA and sprinkled a light coat of earth. This is just some fine earth I collect when out walking in my local park. I sealed this with another coat of PVA. And while this was drying, I set about painting my models. I masked up the windows and headlights with some masking tape and gave the model a coat of primer. Then I gave all the models a light coat of mid-grey from above. This creates a zenithal highlight, immediately adding shadows and light to your models. I carefully removed the masks with a fine knife. I wasn't too worried about any paint rubbing off or blemishes in the paintwork at this stage, as I could easily touch these up later. I got some small stones from the garden and glued these directly onto my landscape. Sure, things were coming along. Looking at things so far, I wasn't really feeling it. It was all looking a bit empty and barren. And I also realised that I didn't have enough soil, and there'd been a lot of rain recently, so the chance of finding any nice fine earth was zero. I also felt like I wanted to vary the particle size a bit, so with a quick change of tack, I laid down some more PVA and sprinkled some light brown grout. This is really fine. I also continued to add more and more stones and different types of soil to begin to build up a varied texture. I painted in the faces of the soldiers and picked out the weapons and several other small details. Next I mixed up a black oil wash. Just oil paint thinned down with some white spirit. Very simple, but oh so effective. An oil wash will find every small detail and dry to a really nice matte finish. I also mixed up some light brown wash to simulate dust from a long ride through the desert. And this looks a bit strong when wet, but after it dries and with a little pigment powder, it will add a really nice little bit of realism. Next I took some balsa wood and cut it into little strips, easy fence posts. I dug out a small hole with a knife, and with a drop of glue I pushed my fence posts into the model. I was unsure where this setting would take place, but I decided it would be somewhere remote but with a little hint of civilization. The simple suggestion of a fence is enough to create a degree of context. I can also use a feature like this to lead the eye and begin to shape a composition. The gestures you use to divide a space all have meaning. I had some fine metal mesh sheets, which I cut to size to make nice fence panels. I also quickly made a gate from some bamboo skewers, just accurate cuts and a dot of superglue. I was finished for the evening, and by the time I came back in the morning, I saw that all my hard work had been destroyed by some kind of craft smashing through it all. I loved this idea, so I added a few more sheets of twisted metal and wood splinters to the pile. I painted in the fence posts with some brown acrylic paint. I also gave the gate a base of silver. I went over everything with my black oil wash again. Easy shadows and so easy to use. I wrapped my LED ball in cling film so it stayed clean. And then I put it in the place where it had made the impact and added a little bit more filler as if the earth was pushed up from the force of the crash. Everything was really starting to come together, but it did still feel a little sparse. I needed a little life. So I decided to add some foliage and small plants. I still had a few boxes left over that Diorama Precipice kindly sent me. These are really high quality mini shrubs and I can't recommend them enough. Sure, they're a little pricey, but definitely worth it in my opinion. And they fit perfectly into my desert theme. Then it was just a case of varying the types of plants to add some diversity. A small hole, a dot of glue, and you're good to go. I also added a bit of static grass. Now I have loads of this left over also from previous projects, so I picked a sort of dull green brown. I added some thinned down PVA glue, and then just used my static grass applicator to shake some grass into place. Nothing heavy, just a smattering here and there. I then added little dabs of rust effect by Dirty Down. This is by far my favourite rust effect. Can be a little temperamental when it's cold, but in my opinion, it gives the best rust effect by far. I added some more stones and earth to my raised area. Spraying the area with a little IPA first, and then drizzling thin down PVA over the top to lock them in place. You can see how with a little IPA first, the glue really spreads and gets in between all those little stones. They also had a bunch of ready-made grass tufts by Gamer Grass. These are also great. Such a quick way to instantly add life to a scene very quickly. I had two different kinds. Some standard grass and then some tufty bushy stuff. These were a bit too bright and green for my arid landscape. So I gave them a quick spray with some grey and some light brown through my airbrush to achieve a better colour. And while I had my airbrush out, I sprayed some colour which was ironically called concrete over all my earth to draw all the various colours together. Just a light misting really, so that the individual colour variation underneath still shows through, but enough to unify all the colours under one umbrella colour. I kept adding more and more little plants and shrubs until I felt that my make-believe desert world had come to life. Next it was time to give the Humvee the desert treatment. For me, the best way to convey dust in a miniature is to use pigment powders. These can be specifically shop bought, or you can make them yourself by crushing up artists' pastels. Here I had a grey-brown colour and used a Q-tip to dust over the lower half of the model and anywhere that I felt may get a build-up of dust. No need to fix this in place, as the pigment is strong and basically stains the surface. And lastly, it was time to pick out the point of impact. After this craft came hurtling through space, it crashed with almighty force. So I sprayed in the scorch marks with my airbrush to also show the direction from where it came from. This was a really fun build to make, and a great example of how, with some very basic techniques, you can put together a realistic landscape for a scene. Don't be afraid to change your minds and alter your idea as you go. I did so plenty of times during this build, but that's very much part of the process. I thank you all for your wonderfully kind comments and continued support. If you're not yet subscribed, what are you waiting for? It's the best way to support the channel and make sure you never miss a video. Hit the like button to let YouTube know where the good stuff is, and share it with your friends who might find this kind of video interesting. Sometimes a big project can begin as a tiny idea. Allow yourself the curiosity to follow through on that idea. The only boundary in creation is your imagination. And if you let your imagination run wild, who knows where it will take you. Thank you for watching, and enjoy.